Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So we are in Bad Batch finale territory, and I gotta say, although the series had more than a few filler episodes, the beginning of the end of the first season has been everything I could have ever wished for, and even more. After the capture of Hunter, Clone Force 99 follows his comlink signal all the way back to Kamino, where Crosshair has obviously laid a trap for them. Now, we've been waiting for this reunion of Clone Force 99 for quite some time, and it could have gone in a very cliche way, like Clone Force 99 succeeding, as they always do, by grabbing Hunter and escaping the clutches of Crosshair. The other cliche thing would have been Crosshair has a change of heart, and then he rejoins with the Bad Batch willingly. Spoiler warning, but none of these things happen. Instead, we get a much more grown-up, realistic, mature, nuanced, and very relatable situation. It turns out that Crosshair is actually a complicated person. He definitely supports the Empire and he believes in their cause, but at the same time, he has strong feelings for the clones of the Bad Batch. They are, after all, his only family, and even when your family betrays you and becomes traitors, they still are your family. And so when Crosshair manages to lure the rest of Clone Force 99 to Kamino with Hunter, he shows his loyalty to them in a classic Imperial way, by killing the TK troopers or future stormtroopers guarding them, because they are, after all, expendable, unlike the Bad Batch. Then, in a very Darth Vader-like way, Crosshair gives Clone Force 99 a second chance to join him on the dark side.
Think of all we could do together.
More importantly, Crosshair tells Hunter that he's giving him a choice that the rest of the Bad Batch never gave to him. It's at this point he reveals that the inhibitor chip in his brain has been gone for quite some time. He's no longer under its control, and now it's just him making decisions. I mean, if you think about it, what Crosshair is saying here is not only pretty reasonable, I tend to agree with him in some ways as well. We throw aside the assumption that the Bad Batch are just the good guys and the Empire are just the bad guys, and just look at the individual, something that we need a lot more in this world. It's hard to really hate Crosshair or consider him evil when we truly understand what he is going through. Now, the revelation of Crosshair not having an inhibitor chip was a shock to everyone, including me and Hunter. I also made an entire video explaining how that Venator-class engine that ignited in Crosshair's face most likely caused damage to the chip, and now that actually seems like a real possibility. But anyway, up until this point, Clone Force 99 completely believes that Crosshair is just acting on behalf of the inhibitor chip, and he is completely helpless, when in reality, for some time, he's been in control. We forget that Crosshair, despite being a clone, is an individual, and his experiences are pretty unique, even when compared to his squad mates. We've talked in previous videos about how being a marksman and a sniper gives Crosshair a much more intimate relationship with the enemies that he faces. Seeing such cruelty or chaos up close might have pushed him more towards the authoritarian side of the political spectrum. The Bad Batch was sent to conflict zones all throughout the Clone Wars. Many of their missions most likely took place in the Outer Rim or in separatist space. This part of the galaxy was wild and unruly. Issues like poverty, disease, and excessive crime and violence had not yet been solved by the Republic's expanding civility and order. What Crosshair probably realized was that chaos was just as evil and probably killed just as many innocent civilians as, let's say, an authoritarian regime and its soldiers would. We have to remember that the Separatist Alliance were basically traitors to the Republic. As secessionists, their departure from the Republic caused a massive amount of death and destruction. The Republic lacked the strength to actually fight back and stamp out this secessionist movement. This allowed the conflict to engulf the entire galaxy into an extremely destructive war. And so when Crosshair and his elite squad of normies find Saw Gerrera's partisans and executes a bunch of refugees, he's not seeing them in the same way as Clone Force 99 and the audience sees them. He instead sees potential agitators that could start another war that has far-reaching consequences for everyone. This also shows us that Crosshair is actually a very pragmatic and probably one of the more rational characters in this unit. He's almost too rational. He lacks emotions in what he does. It's all cold and calculating, a stereotype that sometimes is wrongly associated to snipers, but in this case, it might work quite well. And to think I thought it was going to be Tech who had these kind of issues, but I guess not. Now, obviously, the entire war was created by Darth Sidious and Darth Tyrannus, and the entire conflict was a farce that was designed to extract the exact type of thinking Crosshair is exhibiting here. But can you actually blame him for thinking the way he does after understanding the experiences he's gone through? Probably not. I mean, for Crosshair to go against his brothers, he clearly must believe in this cause quite a lot. In his own way, he's quite honorable and selfless. He doesn't seem to be motivated by selfish reasons. The most selfish thing that he does try to do is to get Clone Force 99 back on board with them, probably because he misses them. And now that I think about it, maybe Crosshair doesn't even miss them. Instead, he just has a lot of respect for the rest of Clone Force 99. He understands that he and the clones are superior, and they're definitely stronger than those stupid TK troopers.
Stop pretending to be something you're not, Hunter. We're not like the Regs. We never have been. We're superior. The Empire can't protect the galaxy without strength.
The fact that Crosshair is willing to do something as extreme as shoot his own soldiers in order to win Clone Force 99 back shows us that even though this could ruin him and his position in the Empire, still values his squad mates' lives more. And this really shifts my viewpoint. Like, we all believe that Crosshair is the one who betrayed Clone Force 99 and that it was he who left them.
We're loyal to each other, not some empire.
But from his point of view, things happen a bit differently.
You weren't loyal to me. I was one of you. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. And it's why I'm going to give you what you never gave me, a chance.
It's possible that even before the Venator-class Star Destroyer's engine burnt Crosshair's hair off of his head, he already had the inhibitor chip removed. And so when he was on Salakamai chasing down Kanan Jarrus or Caleb Doom, maybe he was trying to kill the Padawan because that's what he actually wanted to do. I mean, he was whispering, good soldiers follow orders.
Good soldiers follow orders.
Which usually isn't a good sign. But then again, Crosshair saw the Jedi as a target and a danger to the Republic. Sure, they were former allies and a confusing new enemy to fight, but they had also tried to kill Chancellor Palpatine, an elected official, and remove him from office. This would have been a coup created by like a quasi-religious organization of warrior monks. This is the exact type of instability that Crosshair really fears. But Hunter doesn't really take this into account. He instead stands in Crosshair's way during Order 66 and lets a young Padawan escape. And then he lies to Crosshair about letting him escape. As the audience, we assume that Crosshair is a bad individual because we are pumped full of pro-Republican Jedi propaganda. But if we assume that the Jedi are a viable target, it is Crosshair who has been mistreated and screwed over by the rest of his squad. I know that he is not the leader of the squad, but there seems to be room for discussion about what orders the unit should take. We also have to remember, for the average individual living in the galaxy, the Jedi were not always seen as heroes, especially in the last days of the war. A very successful part of Palpatine's strategy was turning the public's attention against the Jedi. And in all fairness, they had also lost their way as well, blinded by death and destruction that came with war. And honestly, a lot of the clones in the JAR didn't have the highest opinion of the Jedi. Some of them downright hated them because the Jedi were, objectively really bad commanders, especially in the first few years of the war. Not everyone was lucky enough to have Anakin or Obi-Wan Kenobi as their boss. Then you had other clones who were unlucky enough to be assigned to Quinlan Vos, who actually hated the clones and saw them as soulless killing machines. Hunter could potentially be the real problem here. It's not to say that Hunter isn't an amazing person and I would want him watching my back more than most. He's extremely loyal and he has a good heart, but he also constantly puts his squad in danger. He's also taken on a tiny girl and brought her alongside all of their very dangerous adventures, which might actually seem pretty normal by Disney's standards. They like to put children in dangerous situations that are not really acceptable by real life standards. I mean, were this to happen in real life, it would be very likely that there would be an Amber Alert out for Hunter and his gray space fan. And it seems like Crosshair is the only person who really questions any of this.
Omega belongs with us.
Living among fugitives where she's in constant danger, you want to protect the kid, then let her go.
And Crosshair, once again, is right about this situation. Hunter is being irrational. He's a fugitive on the run at worst and a mercenary freedom fighter at best. Neither profession is really healthy for a young girl like Omega to be around, and thanks to him, she's seen far more death and destruction than most people ever should. I mean, Hunter isn't exactly wrong here. He is doing some good as well, and he has this type of personality where he really does believe in himself. Probably a little too much. Remember, this is a guy who can sense electromagnetic fields and can track almost everything. It wouldn't be wrong to assume that Hunter is a highly intuitive individual, and that of course does not mesh well with a person with a complete opposite personality like Crosshair, who is extremely pragmatic. The revelation of Crosshair's mindset shows us that the world and most people are pretty nuanced. There rarely are completely evil or good people in the world, and only through empathy can we properly understand what motivates people, and more importantly, avoid hurting people and making mistakes that should have never been made. Ultimately, despite their differences, Hunter and Crosshair both put their loyalty to each other ahead of everything else. And it really wasn't obvious that Crosshair had this mindset until he killed all of the TK troopers beneath his command.
Think of all we could do together. We were brothers once. We can be again.
Now, even though Hunter and Crosshair finally get to sit down and talk and kind of truly understand what motivates the other, these two individuals are still stuck in a pretty awkward situation. Both of them still had lethal weapons pointed at each other because they weren't willing to let go of that last ideological difference. But Omega makes the happy accident of releasing dozens of killer droids onto the clones, and suddenly for a few minutes, the Bad Batch were together once again, with Hunter at point and Crosshair picking up the rear. Not even once during this battle did Hunter or Crosshair consider using this opportunity to shoot or stab each other in the back. And honestly, it's not over. This is only part one of the finale. Dave Filoni's dinky little cartoon TV show has more depth and beautiful commentary about the human experience than that entire janky and soulless sequel trilogy. Well done, Dave Filoni. And now that Crosshair has effectively been executed by Admiral Rampart's orbital strike, he'll be more isolated than ever. The only people that will take him in at this point is the Bad Batch. This sets up an amazing part 2 finale, and I'm also really excited for season 2 as well of the Bad Batch. Well, let me know in the comment section below what you think about my little theory. Do you think Crosshair is right, or at least partially right, then that Clone Force 99 has made some mistakes along the way as well? Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.